All right. I see that little red light in the upper right hand corner on my iPad, and that's lit. So it means, well, start yapping here. And I will certainly get to talk over the next few minutes about, well, one of my favorite things to talk about, and that is certainly the horses owned and campaigned by West Point Thoroughbreds. Hope everybody's doing well. Hard to believe May is just about over. It is, after all, Memorial Day weekend, and my dad's a Vietnam vet, and naturally, a weekend to think about men and women who have paid the ultimate sacrifice so we could enjoy our freedoms. Very proud. I've said it before of my dad's service over in Vietnam, and we've got a lot going on between Saturday 2nd at Belmont Park up through Monday afternoon, way out, well, maybe not way out west, but certainly west of where I'm talking in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in Horseshoe, Indianapolis. I'll cover all eight starters, beginning, of course, with race two on Saturday at Belmont, where West Point's got an entry. Two different trainers, naturally two different horses. We've got Dripping Gold and QF 75, who have different running styles. And ultimately, in this 9 furlong 2X allowance optional claimer, it's going to, I think, come down to not only effort, which of course is probably paramount, but not far behind effort, pace and trip. This is a short field, but it's a field that's got quality. I mean, it's really a race, not only our entry, but I think as a whole, it's quality over quantity, and there's not a lot of speed. And generally speaking, the inner turf at Belmont is a grass course in which I prefer to have early speed, and that's something that should, in theory, help QF 75. Here he is, actually, Thursday of Derby week. This was, I think, opening day. In fact, it was opening day of the spring meet at Belmont. We had wrapped up and he rolls here. I mean, he was in control, completely dominant, almost reminds me of being a Florida Panthers and a New York Rangers fan, but rooting for the Florida Panthers, who are now in the Stanley Cup Finals, of their goalie, Sergei Bobrovsky, who's just looked cool, calm, and collected, and you'll see that with QF 75. But we were at Lane's End Derby week getting the tour, and he ran like 15 minutes after the tour wrapped up. So to say that was an unforgettable day is an understatement. I know Joe and Tommy, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. They did a podcast about race options and ultimately QF 75 winding up in this race after Christoph on Tuesdays at 2 originally said the plan was to space QF's races out. For me, and again, I'll watch what those guys had to say, and I'm anxious to hear what they had to say. But for me, my takeaway is, you know what, in Christoph we trust. He knows this horse better than anybody, and I just don't see him entering QF 75 if he felt as though the horse didn't come out of that race in tip top shape and he would not be up to the task. I mean, he's obviously going up in class. I think this is a significantly better field than the one he took down last time, but he's got the speed. I mean, he clearly likes the inner turf, and I'm anxious to see how he does. He's got kind of, in a way, the bullseye on his back there, being the obvious lone speed. We'll see if the 3 Night Jumper maybe shows a little early interest, but good luck to QF 75, who just shows up and runs hard. That is something Dripping Gold doesn't do with maybe the same frequency, but I'm not being hard on him. I'm a Dripping Gold fanboy. I said that on the internal, team horse call yesterday, and I proudly say that. And he's a horse that has run, I think, better. He's showed up in more races than he hasn't shown up. He had us all on pins and needles. Here's his last race. He's the 8 horse. We're outside here off the turn at Keeneland with Tyler Gaffleone. Looked like he was just going to win this A other than for fun back in April, and he just kind of kept that horse to his inside, F5 in the race. The good news is F5 was making his first start on the turf that day and clearly ran a big race in a tough loss and would come back to win out of that race. In fact, he's the only winner of 5 horses who have since returned on the turf. We'll see running style. He's more of a relentless kind of closer. Is he up against it? Potentially, if they go really slow. Yeah, maybe. But I really think as a 4 year old, he's gelded. I think there's another level Dripping Gold has yet to get to, and I think he has it in him. So it's an interesting conversation. Part of me wonders who's the more talented horse of the West Point duo, Dripping Gold or QF75. We'll see. Chad's horse in the race, Portfolio Company, did not have a clean trip, and for what it's worth, we'll throw to the race his most recent race last time. He's the 11. He's in the red and white of the Klarovich colors and didn't get clear until, well, the race was pretty much over and he was forced to try to peck away and grind away down towards the inside, which doesn't really work. He was a nice 2 year old. His 3 year old season was a little nondescript. Again, is he kind of in the same boat as a Dripping Gold? Does he get outrun a little bit and have to close into a pretty slow pace? Assuming things go well, though, it would not surprise me if Portfolio Company was right there along with R2, because clearly the horse has ability, and I don't think the 5 space launch is out of it by any means. West Point, I'm proud to say, we've got quite a few fingerprints on this race, not only having the entry and 2 very good horses in the entry, but I did give the blue check mark there to Space Launch because he's out of Spacey Tracy, and he's an older half brother to Ohana Honor, who's a week away. He's going to run next Saturday with Flavian Pratt at Belmont with Flavor Flav, so that's going to be good. And Space Launch is a solid knock around 2 other than horse. He doesn't have a recent race. Dripping Gold has that. Portfolio Company has that. QF has that. So he isn't off a layoff here for Christoph, but clearly his A effort or even B plus A minus level effort puts him squarely in the mix. It's an interesting race. Again, it's all about quality over quantity and what's going to happen as far as the pace in a short field going a mile and a furlong on the inner turf in race 2 on Saturday. Let's move on. In fact, we will head down 95 south. We'll make a pit stop at Delaware Park. This will be with Litrus running in race number 3 with a post time in the paper here in the program of 1:30 p.m. Eastern. This will be our first Delaware starter of the season, and there haven't been many. There have not been all that many Delaware starters, at least in my 2 years plus with the company. Might have to convince Christina maybe to make a pit stop there on the way to Saratoga in a few weeks. It's been a while since I was at Delaware. Litrus is obviously the horse to beat. She's 2-1 on the morning line. And again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know the horse population or the Mid-Atlantic, other than turf fillies on grass like the back of my hand, but working my way through this field, it looks like a Delaware caliber non-winners one allowance. There's some horses stepping up in class that ultimately have had more races than Litrus, but as far as ability goes, because her 2 races at Tampa over the winter were very solid, including a race where, and she's the number 7, Red Cap, which I can't stand. I don't like that Tampa has the saddle colors as jockey caps. It just looks so cheap to me, but she's the number 7 at a race. I think last time she left a large chunk of her game, or certainly left a lot of her energy in closing kick and finishing punch somewhere between the finish line for the first time and the clubhouse turn. She got rank, nearly ran off. Race took a lot out of her. We've given her the time. She's trained well. She was one of my favorite yearlings, Coulter filly that we bought back in 2021, and I'm looking forward to Litrus getting back on track. Tough game. We know that this is a field I think she's supposed to hammer and run really, really well against in Saturday's 3rd at Delaware Park. Let's bounce over to Domina, who's our other Saturday starter. We've got a couple of fillies in following the 2 boys at Belmont with QF and Dripping. Domina goes in the 7th. Again, she is very much a filly that's going to need to improve and improve drastically. I think looking at the fact she's by Empire Maker, she was over 20-1 first out. She was a Cherie first. I mean, Cherie's great. She's done a phenomenal job for us, and I feel as though big in terms of just like the big picture, as time goes on, Cherie is just going to keep getting that traction, and her name is really it's already kind of a household name. But I'm a big Cherie fan, but cranking them up first out, not really her game. So again, that long spiel was pretty much like we knew Domina was going to need a race and was going to need distance, and she's going to get that at a mile and a 16th. What she also needs is to really raise up her game. And it's not that this field of mostly older, or I should say three and up filly and mare maidens, it's not like this field is so difficult. She just didn't really show anything first out. I do think she'll improve. Ultimately, where that puts her at crunch time remains to be seen. The good news is she's catching two sub 2-1 favorites in the program, and I think that underscores just how light this race is from inside to outside. That you have the six Forever After All at 7-5, and then your co-favorite slash second choice is also under 2-1 odds at 9-5 here in Corsini on the outside. The good news is you've already got a filly that's run 7 times in Forever After All that has 5 seconds. That's never a good sign. She's been beaten by some okay fillies like Butterbean, who's a stakes winner. This is a Rapoli filly by Union Rags, who's a little inconsistent, but would be 1-5 here in inventing. So, I mean, she's run against some good horses. She just, again, has lost 7 times. Corsini did improve in her most recent start and has actually stepped up her game little by little, just that itty bitty incremental improvement with each of her 3 races. And that could make her, in my eyes, the horse to beat, even though I think as a whole, Forever After All owns the best races. So good luck to Domina. We'll see again. Likely to improve. Where does that put her against this field in her second start? Let's move on to Happy Am I. We'll stay at Churchill. We'll fast forward to Sunday here. Again, a holiday weekend, and I hope most of you, if not all of you, are able to enjoy the holiday on Monday, Memorial Day. Smack dab in the middle of the weekend is Happy Am I in race 5. You know, I had just mentioned with Domina the maybe lack of depth looking at her race from a field perspective. That is a different opinion I hold for Happy Am I's race. This looks like a pretty competitive race to my eyes, and there might be some horses in here that are okay. Why don't we talk about Happy Am I first, since she's ours, and you know she was so fast at OBS when we bought her in April of 2022. Looked like she just wasn't in a great spot. She broke well. She's the 8 horse here, first out of Churchill a few weeks ago with Tyler Gaffleone riding. And it was like that horse in red. I remember watching the race live, and I just didn't like just how that horse in red to her immediate outside had kind of like latched alongside of her and was just kind of really just pressing her to the outside. And I guess the comments were she was a little intimidated there, which it just didn't look like she was in a great spot after the break to me. And you'd like to think, having that experience under her belt, evidently she had some superficial cuts too, which were, you know, the picture was shared on Chatter. I mean, just again, stuff happens during the races. I don't know how much of an excuse that was, but I mean, she did have a superficial cut on one of her legs. And the good news is, much like Cherie, I don't, and Dallas would argue with me because he argued with me Derby Day. We had a friendly debate about his strike rate winning first out. With our horses anyway, it feels as though Dallas, as a first-time starter trainer, that's not really his bag. So I like Dallas second out as opposed to first out. And you've got the 2 breezes since, including a very nice, crisp half mile in 47-1. Good luck to her. Let's just hope, you know what, I'm busting out, even though she didn't really have speed, I'm busting out the red pen, or at least the red color here on my Apple Pencil. And off that fast-paced race, hopefully she can just break on top and just fly. She's going to need to be good. You've got this $1.25 million Spendthrift Farm into Mischief Firster for Brad Cox debuting on the outside. the dam embellished the lace, won the Alabama at Saratoga back in 2015, okay? And was 3 for 6 and a grade one winner and a talented horse. Broodmare status with her, she's been okay. Considering the sires she's gone to and what her horses have sold for, this is not the second coming, at least as of now, of like Tuso or I'm drawing a blank. I put myself on the spot thinking about that Juddmonte family, that Heat Hayes and Banks Hill, Cacique. No, it wasn't Cacique. He was one of the foals out of her. It'll come to me. But anyway, her her success, her record as a broodmare has been okay, but average. Pumpkin Scone, for the record, is the third of four foals. The only one in the family that's raced thus far is named Tap the Lace, who coincidentally Christoph trains. She's won 3 of 7 races on the dirt, but she's just kind of an average allowance horse. But again, none of that stuff may matter. Pumpkin Scone might be very good. She cost an arm and a leg, and we'll see what she does. The Asmussen Firster for Winchell Thoroughbreds in Absinthe by Gunrunner. The dam was unraced. This is the third foal, kind of a nondescript family. What isn't nondescript, speaking of Steve Asmussen, is that monster and beast of a New York bred looking at Lucky Colt we just bought on Monday at the Fasig-Tipton Timonium sale. There's 5, as I tape this, 5% remaining on him, and he's as nice, in my humble opinion, as nice a horse as West Point has purchased this year. And if you haven't looked at him, he is a horse I highly recommend taking a look at. I love that looking at Lucky Colt going to Steve, and can't wait to get him started this summer at Saratoga. Couple of inside starters. Oh, you know what? I was talking about Juddmonte too. They've got a homebred in here for Bill Mott, who I just read is taking over the training of Rich Strike. You've got Call Again, who's by the late great Arrogate. Not one of these crazy good, at least as far as the dam is concerned. I didn't go back multiple generations, but this wasn't like a Juddmonte family where I was like, wow, holy smokes, every horse is like a grade or Group 1 winner. European Dam, who's now 18. She's had some winners. Nothing too outrageous in the family. And Bill Mott, a guy, and I'm a huge Bill Mott fan. Who isn't? Tend to like his horses once they've had a start under their belt. And I feel similarly with both Brendan Walsh and Mark Casse, who have a pair of second-time starters, two very distinct and different-looking second-time starters from the inside post. Looking at the Casse horse by Uncle Mo, you've got the one Motown Mayhem, who did sell for good money, and that was a dirt breeze. That was Fasig-Tipton May of 2022. So this horse brought 350, working well on the dirt at Timonium. The dam was trained by Bill Mott. She was 1 for 12 in her career and did win on the dirt. However, her 2 foals, and there's quality already. They're multiple winners, but the 2 winning foals in the family so far have won on turf and synthetic. And that was something I thought about with them debuting Motown Mayhem on the turf at Gulfstream Park. She got bet, didn't really fire. There's been 3 next out winners. It's a turf race, mind you, and all 3 of those horses that came back to win all won on the grass. So, the million-dollar question with her is, how does she do on the dirt? But she's coming out of a good race. She's bred to be a dirt horse, and it does appear that she's worked pretty well on the dirt as well. So she's a really interesting horse to me, despite the fact I rarely like horses, or at least always have a raised eyebrow in looking at horses that debuted on the grass that have more dirt pedigrees. Under Advisement ran well, had a very good trip, put herself in a good spot, stalked the duel, had 2 horses vying in front of her, and like it said, grinded between. She just had this slow and steady sort of one-paced, good finish between horses at a big price, and I would expect her to run in a good race and likely take a step forward. Same goes for Happy Am I. Let's see her, even if she doesn't win, let's see her improve and run a much better, way more even race. But she definitely has her work cut out for her. This looks like a nice field of maidens to me in Sunday's 5th race at Churchill Downs. And then I'll wrap it up let's fast forward to Monday's action. We've got a couple of horses running at Indy Grand, and that includes a Cherie Firster here in Velocita, who spent the winter with me down in South Florida. She was at Palm Meadows, Golden Sense filly here. Cherie, I would go into it thinking, first time starter aside, Cherie's going to be very live with whatever she's running at Horseshoe Indy. But there is a Steve Asmussen horse in here, and Val, who's going to take a lot of beating, and clearly in a race where nobody else has run nearly as fast or as well against the best fields like Val has. I mean, she is very much the baseline by a wide margin, and accordingly is going to be a big favorite. And the Horseshoe Indianapolis product, I think, affords trainers that maybe don't have a horse that is quite good enough in that part of the country for, say, a big race at Churchill. It really is a nice option to be able to ship horses there and just run against slightly easier company. And although he hasn't done it all that much this spring, that is not lost on Steve Asmussen, having won 2 of 4 with 2/3. So Val is going to be a heavy favorite. And in fact, what's this Asmussen double going to be paying here for a deuce? If you like Val and you think Velocita is going to need one to get going, what about the Asmussen on top of Asmussen double there in races 2 and 3 with our horse, Speaking of the Devil? This is the spot for him. Comes out of a race where just not a lot went right for him from that. Just hate that inside post, that rotten inside post. Just got buried in traffic, and then he had a rally inside. He drew well today, and much like Val in the race prior, he is very much the nucleus to this upcoming Monday race at Horseshoe Indy by a wide swath there. So good luck to Speaking of the Devil. He's in a race. I'm going to be disappointed if he doesn't run gigantic. He's supposed to be really tough against this sort of grab bag group of maidens in Indianapolis. And that's going to do it. Wishing all our horses the best of luck. We've got a little room, again, as I wrap this up, a little room, in fact, less than 10% left on that Looking at Lucky New York bred going to Steve Asmussen, who's supposed to win 2 early races Monday at Horseshoe. And check out the Street Sense Colt as well, who's going to Dale and his big-time turf breeze over in France. And Jeff and Terry and David and Gordo did a great job filling in the backstory on him. He's got a really interesting, sort of quirky backstory, which I like. I like stuff like that, and looking forward to all the 2-year-olds that just joined the stable between the March, April, and May 2-year-old sales. And I hope everybody has an excellent weekend as we get closer and closer to the 3rd leg of the Triple Crown. Thanks for listening, everybody, and good luck.